It's 8 a.m. So because of my schedule today, I had to do my 2 hours starting at 6. So I feel that that was very different to the past 5 days because, or 6 days. I think this is day 7. I felt very impatient towards the last half an hour. There was impatience all the way through, but yeah, I don't know. I think something about being straight out of sleep into meditation, it felt more, I don't know, really interesting to feel my ego judging the feeling, which is, I suppose, all life is feeling and then brain inter perceiving the feeling and then creating the perception. Um, yeah, I felt really impatient, and I was trying to be at peace with the impatience, but I was itching to look at my phone and see. I actually did. Yeah, 8:02 was when my 2 hours was up, and I checked my phone at 7:53. I was like, I had 9 minutes left, and that 9 minutes, and actually listening to the. So usually, right, when you have a voice that says check your phone or don't open your eyes, which almost it happens every time. If you're going to sit with yourself for 2 hours, voices like that happen because your ego and your patterns have nowhere to run. Usually they go, do this, and you go, okay, you know, do this or they won't like you, or do this or you'll be blah blah blah, and you go, okay, and you do the thing that it wants you to do to avoid the feeling, and then the feeling never has to come up because you're doing what it wants, right? Which is why in the 50s, everyone's patterns run the world, and patterns still run the world, but there's a lot more awareness, and so it's a lot heavier and a lot harder for people's patterns to run the world, their world, rather, the world in general as well. Um, but the conditions of the ego were all being met in the 50s, and everyone's patterns were running them because whatever they told the person to do, they did, you know, and so the conditions were such that no feelings ever had to really be felt because people were just attuned to whatever their ego wanted, and they didn't even know what they wanted. You know, someone in the 50s, you could ask someone, or right now, someone who was born in the 50s, you could ask them, "What do you feel?" And they'd say, "I just feel like they won't," or "I just feel like no one understands," or like, you know, "I can't really get to this." That's not yours. You know, like that's not a feeling. That's not a feeling. Feelings are children that live in our body. You know, it's a small, vulnerable, authentic version of us that goes, I feel sad or I feel unseen. You know, it doesn't speak in circumstances. And so it's really interesting to speak to someone from that time, because if they're being ran by a pattern or if they're not aware, which a lot of them are not aware, through no fault of their own, they just grew up in a world where there was no work like this. There was no one talking like this. There was no meditation. And if it was very rare and very woozy. I had a moment towards the end where I was feeling all of that impatience and was itching to just not be in that space. And I was trying to bring peace to it, and I was trying to find the peace that is here, or receive the peace, rather. And I kind of, it really helps me sometimes when I'm stuck in a loop, or I'm going somewhere, feeling heavy. Instead of trying to escape the heaviness, I kind of lift my chin a bit. So sometimes I, through the just being sat there for a while, my head kind of naturally tilts downwards like that, and it really helps to not even adjust my posture too much, but just lift my chin towards the, just upwards a little bit, and and say in my head, please help me. Please help me. I don't know what I'm doing. Please help me. And suddenly, what I experience is the anxiety. The feeling is the same, but my understanding of the feeling or my perception of the feeling slightly shifts, which changes the experience. So, anxiety swirling in my chest is just not nice. It's just heavy. It feels stuck, and I have a judgment of that it's stuck, and I have a perception of what meditation should look like, which is it's a linear path and it's processing things and it's constantly flowing and my emotions are like a river and things are just popping up and then going on. Like, that's not really how it feels sometimes, but then also sometimes stuck is what you feel. You're stuck, and in that moment, being okay with being stuck is much higher than trying to be a flowing river in that moment. But anxiety on its own feels stuck and heavy and often difficult and dirty, not dirty, like sticky. But then just doing that with my chin and asking the universe to fucking help me with this. It, because without that, I'm just going, no worries, universe. My ego is going to deal with this one. I am going to do this. I am going to work through this sticky stuff. But the universe has got so much better ideas for us and me than I and my ego will ever have. So the more surrender and the more giving in, the more I release my control of that thing. So anyway, I look up and I say, please help me. That's what I said earlier anyway. And the same feeling of anxiety that I was having went from feeling heavy and stuck to kind of it getting lifted out of me. But that was only my shift in my perception of the experience. Because it was still just there, but suddenly the stuckness was okay. Because it felt like a hand came down and just made it okay. Yeah. And still, huge amount of impatience today. Huge amount of impatience. Trying to run from. But I'd like to offer that even if for 2 hours you sit and you're in complete pain and it's just heavy and stuck and you're impatient and you're just having the worst time, if you sit it through, the rest of your day will be much easier because you have faced something in yourself and you've given yourself that time, Whether or not you have sat down with your inner child and you've held hands and you've cried together and you've had this huge growth thing that your ego can easily perceive as growth, just sitting on the other side of the door while he's or she's locked themselves in their room and they're going, no, I'm not coming out, I'm not doing it today. Do anything but look at me, I'm not doing this. Just sitting on the other side of the door and saying, I know you're in there. I love you. I'll be out here. Take as long as you need, is essentially what you're doing when you're sitting with heavy, stuck, impatient feelings and choosing to stay. That's amazing, And I'm gonna go have a great day now, and I hope that you do too. God, there's a lot of yawning in this series, eh? Series. It's like my Stranger Things. Right. I love you. Goodbye.